Hi everyone, Sabrina here from Scrappy Tales Crafts, and today I'll be showcasing this new stamp set by Not Too Shabby. This is a part of the spring and summer release. It's an adorable little tea set with a mouse and bunny. I'm going to show you a few of the other stamp sets that come in this release, and there is a blog hop happening, and each of the designers is working with one of these 4 stamp sets. So I just wanted to quickly show you the entire new release. And then again, I will be using this Tea Time stamp set. So for card 1, I'm going to be creating 3 cards with this stamp set. I'm going to stamp out the macarons from the stamp set onto a sheet of Neenah cardstock cut to 4 by 5 1/4 inches. This is 110-pound white cardstock. I like using heavier cardstock when I'm coloring. So I'm just going to create a background here. I started in one corner and I'm working my way outwards. That's how I prefer to make my backgrounds, but some people like to start in the middle and then move outwards. I am turning my acrylic block so that the macarons are stamped in different directions. I'm trying my best to fill in all those open areas, but there are still a few blank areas on my card. So I decided to take the small Merci sentiment stamp, and I'm just going to stamp that in all those small areas to try to fill in the background more. And I am stamping with my Memento Tuxedo black ink. This is an alcohol-friendly ink, so I will be coloring this background in with my Copic markers. And I wanted all these macarons to be pink, so I pretty much went through my Copics and took all the pinks that I have. I made sure to pick some light, medium, and dark pinks, just so that I get a variety of tones. And I didn't want all of the macarons to have the exact same color, but I did want them all to be pink. So here I'm showing you how I colored these in. I have the caps on screen. I'm going to show you how I colored about 1/4 of this panel. And when I work with my Copics, I always start with my darkest marker. I map out the darkest areas. So in the case of this background, I'm having my highlight be in the center of the macarons. So I'm adding my darkest marker to the edges of the macarons, and then I'll go over the dark areas with my mid-tone and sort of pull that color more towards the center, but I make sure to leave just a little bit of white still showing so that I can add my highlight color and blend all of the colors together. I am using 3 markers per macaron. I normally just use 2, but since this is the focal point on 2 of my cards, I'll actually be cutting this so that I can use 2 portions of it. I knew I wanted to take my time with this panel and decided to add a little bit more detail with 3 colors instead of 2. You can see that I am using each marker twice around the panel, and that's just because I don't want to have 2 dark macarons sitting next to each other. I want to try to evenly distribute the color between my light, medium, and dark macarons. And just to break up that pink, I am adding some C2 and C0 to create some white macarons. So I'm just going to show you how I colored a few more of these macarons, and then off camera I finished the rest of the background. I believe I used 9 pink markers and then my 2 C markers to color this in. And I think eventually I just start to color one at a time. And then I will be cutting this panel to have a wide frame, and then I'll have an inside rectangle which I will use on my 3rd card. So now I'm going to color in the little mouse and the bunny inside the teacups. And I am using the same markers that I used on the background to color in the cups. And then I'm going to make my bunny white with my C2 and C0 marker, and then I'll make the mouse slightly darker. I think I pull in C4 for the mouse. When I'm coloring white, I add just a little bit of my C markers, just on the edges, and then I don't really bother to blend it out. I find that the more I blend white, the more it looks gray, so I really only add the darker colors to the edges, and then I leave it alone. Okay, so that's my bunny. I decided to have the liquid coming out of the cup to be kind of like whipped cream, so I left it white, or it could be milk. But you can color that brown. I just didn't have any other brown in my card, so I left it white. Here I'm coloring in my little mouse. I added C4 along with my C2 and C0, and you can see the difference that C4 made when you compare it to the bunny. Just adding one darker marker really makes the difference. So I'm going to color in another pink mug here, or cup. I think these images are so darling. They would work well with Easter or Mother's Day, I think even birthday. And if you want to see some more inspiration using some of the other stamp sets from the new release, you can check out the other design team members' videos along the blog hop. If you decide to hop along, you will be entered into the chance to win a $25 gift certificate. All you have to do is leave a comment on each person's video. And I'll have more information about the hop listed down in my description in case you want to check that out. I finished coloring in these two images, so I'm just going over them with my Wink of Stella brush. And then I'm just going to fussy cut them out. Alright, so now we are back to that macaroon pattern paper. And this is where I decided to cut a frame out of it. So I took a smaller stitch rectangle die and I cut it from the center. I made sure it was a pretty small rectangle, that way I had a wide border so that you can definitely see the macaroons through it. And then once I added my bunny and my mouse to the center, I really felt like they were getting lost, and that might just be because I used the same colors on them as I did on the background. So I decided to tone down this frame by adding a vellum frame on top. And in order to glue that vellum frame, I glued some gems on top of that, and then I hid the glue behind the gems and then attached it to my macaroon frame. And now I'm taking my card base and a gray panel, which I attached directly to my card base. And now I'm going to start arranging my scene. So my little critters are going to go in the center inside that frame, and then below them I'm going to stamp out my sentiment. And I'm going to white heat emboss it. I chose "You're a Sweet Tea." Super cute. There's another sentiment that says "You're my bestie." Okay, and now I'm ready to attach my frame. I'm going to add acetate behind it. If you've been a follower of mine, you know that I love acetate. I really think that it makes your cards look expensive and elegant, I guess. So I'm going to add the acetate, and then I'm going to add some foam tape behind it. You could make this into a shaker, but I decided not to. I'm just going to pop it up for dimension. Before I attach that, I'm going to glue down my mouse and bunny. Just using some art glitter glue, I'm hovering my frame above that gray panel to help me center my bunny and mouse here. Alright, so I like how that looks. I'm going to go ahead and attach my frame, but if you're creating this card at home, don't attach the frame yet. I thought that there was a missing space between the sentiment and the cups, so I am just going to carefully lift up my frame and add another macaron in front of the two cups. I decided to add a few more gems onto the acetate. And here's where I decided to add in another macaron. So I'm just opening or lifting up one side of that frame, and then I will just squeeze that little macaron right behind. I'm just gonna add one more gem, I think, or 2 more gems, and that will complete card number 1. Here's a close-up. For my second card, I wanted to create a 1-layer card, and I don't make a lot of these, and that's mostly because I'm not good at them. Even this one I messed up. I'm always really confident with my masking, but every single time I make a 1-layer card, there's one mistake. Luckily, this mistake wasn't hugely noticeable, and I didn't want to start over, so I just went with it. So, rule of thumb with masking is you want to stamp what's in the foreground first. So I wanted these macarons to be in front of these stacked teacups, which I'm inking up now. So I stamped the macarons first, added the mask, and then I stamped out my teacups. And now I'm going to add the mask for my teacups. And I wanted to have my little mouse in the teacup on top of these stacked ones. But what I should have done was I should have stamped out my mouse first, masked him off, and then stamped my stacked layers of teacups. So at the time, I didn't know that this was a problem because I just put my mask on top of that mouse. Later on, I will add that. But you're going to see the mistake once I take off these masks. But first, I'm going to stamp out the bunny inside the mug. And then beside it, I'm going to add a macaron. And then I decided to add another macaron just for symmetrical purposes to the other side. And then in front of all of this, I'm going to add a tea bag and a straw. This stamp set is perfect for creating cute little scenes. And I think this card is my favorite despite the mistake, which it's fine. Like I said, I don't make a lot of 1-layer cards because of this reason. And they're very time consuming, having to cut out the masks, but they're really cool. I love that you can achieve dimension without any sort of foam tape when you create 1-layer cards. So I decided to cut out some more masks to cover up everything because I will be doing some ink blending, and I recommend using some masking paper. I didn't have any, so I used just regular cardstock with a little bit of tape behind it, but I do end up ripping part of my panel. It's not a big deal, I just colored over it, but I do recommend masking tape. So for the ink blending, I'm first blending on some, I think this is seedless preserves. I'm using Distress ink and a Picket Fence Studios blender brush. And then on top, I'm going to add spun sugar. So I'm creating a gradient from purple to pink. I tried to be light-handed with my blending. I wanted my colors to be kind of pastel. And here's where the magic happens. You're going to remove the masks, and here's when I realized the mistake that I made. You can see that the stacked teacups are in front of that mouse teacup, when I really wanted the mouse teacup to be on top of the stacked teacups. I hope that makes sense. I didn't bother to cut out those little areas inside the handles, and you're going to see how I kind of blend those into the background in a second. I'm going to show you how I colored about half of this. I didn't show you how I colored the bunny and the macarons just because you've already seen that. So I'm just going to show you how I colored the stacked teacups as well as the mouse. I chose some purples, blue greens, blues, yellow, and pink. And I honestly love this card because of the colors I chose. I am using 3 markers on each image. And here I'm trying to decide, do I want to make it look like the mouse cup is on top, or do I just want to embrace the imperfection? I decided I'm going to try to hide it as much as I can, so I just decided to color the top of that blue mug purple to kind of try to camouflage it. You can still tell that it's messed up, but maybe if I didn't point it out, you wouldn't have noticed, but I think it's all right. It is a handmade card after all. I decided this time to make the coffee coming out of the bunny's cup brown. And I'll also make one of my macarons brown. I tried to use each color 3 times just for that rule of 3s. For some of the colors, I obviously can't do that, but I try my best to evenly distribute the colors. All right, so I finished the rest off camera. And then I'm going to add a yellow panel on top of my card base just to frame in my scene. So this technically isn't a 1-layer card, but I don't think I could ever make a 1-layer card. I really love my frames and I love my embellishments, so it's almost a 1-layer card. I'm going to attach my panel onto the yellow frame, and that's about 1/8 of the inch wider, so it's a very skinny yellow frame. And then just to finish this card off, I'm going to add a few more of those pink gems. I got these on Amazon. I'll have them listed down below. I actually use these gems on all 3 of my cards, so they all coordinate very well together. I use 2 different sized gems, and that will complete card number 2. I love the little pop of yellow added in. All right, card 3 is super quick. I actually used a card sketch and I colored in my bunny the exact same way I did for card 1. The only difference here is for the whipped cream, I wanted it to be puffy, so I'm taking a snow marker and I'm just adding it to the whipped cream. And then I'm taking my heat tool and heat setting that, and what happens is it foams up. It's really cool. I slowed down the video so you can see what that looks like. It's really dimensional. There's a lot of puffy embossing powders, but none of them are as puffy as this snow pen. So I obviously use it a lot for snow, but also for foam, such as whipped cream. So I'm going to stamp out my sentiment. I'm going to white heat emboss it onto some black cardstock. I think I chose You're a Sweetie. I'll just heat set that and then trim it out with my scissors. And like I said, I used a card sketch for this card, and that's because I really wanted to use the rest of that macaroon paper. And one of the things I struggle with in card making is using pattern paper without covering it up. So oftentimes I will go to Pinterest and try to find some card designs that showcase pattern paper. And one of them had a design that showcased 2 papers, so I took a hot pink polka dot paper from my stash. I matted it onto some black cardstock, and I'm also going to mat my macaroon paper behind some black cardstock. And I will have this card sketch on my coordinating blog post if you want to check out the measurements. And then I'm going to pop up my circle with the bunny inside of it. And I'm also going to pop up my sentiment. And that is going to complete my 3rd card using the new Tea Time Not Too Shabby stamp set. I love how all of my cards turned out super girly. I'm going to show you all 3 of them right now. They definitely represent my style of card making, and I'm really happy with how these turned out. If you want to see how other design team members used this stamp set, as well as the other stamps from the release, hop along on the blog hop, and also leave comments on all the videos along the hop and the chance to win a $25 gift certificate to the Not Too Shabby shop. Thanks again so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!